Welcome everyone to tonight's edition of Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
That's me.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. We broadcast on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time from CIVL, which resides on the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation.
Yay.
And the radio show is also put out as a podcast to all the major podcasting platforms. And you can also go to drlesliephillips.com and you will catch all the past episodes there as well.
Yes.
So every week on Unlocking Your Truth, we talk about something under that umbrella of metaphysics and spirituality.
I would certainly hope
We've
so.
been doing a series on psychic abilities of late. And tonight's edition is about the relationship between spirit guides, you, and your intuition or your psychic abilities. So
I think everybody enjoys when we talk about spirit guides.
Spirit guides is one of the most popular topics that we talk about. So I hope everyone come along with your questions. And of course, I forgot to mention that we pre-record the show, and that allows us to have a live studio audience on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. The Facebook group where you can join so that you can attend the live podcast is the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group and my YouTube channel. Just search for Dr. Leslie Phillips on YouTube and you should find me. So yeah, we're talking about spirit guides, and I was listening to the other week, I was listening to a YouTube video that was Esther Hicks channeling Abraham. And I can't remember what somebody asked a question, and I believe it was about spirit guides or guidance from higher consciousness. And they said, we are like the wind on your sails. If you want to know who we are, think of it this way: we are like the wind on your sails. And I really enjoyed that analogy. And they said, we are always here. You are never alone. We are the wind on your sails. Such a wonderful analogy, because we go through lots of ups and downs here on Earth in our human physical bodies. And it's possible to have the illusion, the feeling of being alone in what we're going through. And what they're saying is, no, we're like the air that surrounds you. We're like the wind that blows in your hair. We're always there. We're always there to support you. You just have the illusion that we're not there. And in my experience, this is completely true, that our spirit guides or spirit is always there to support us. So that's what I was going to talk about this evening on Unlocking Your Truth. The idea that we are constantly being supported and by our guides, and also being influenced, guided, assisted. Because if you think about that idea, the wind in your sails, it's there whispering to you. It's there gently pointing you in the right direction. It's adding extra oomph. It's adding extra oomph. It's helping you go further and faster. It's helping you move forward. It's helping you take the next step. And just like you might not really notice the wind, you might not pay it that much attention, and yet it's still blowing in your sails. And so your guides can be whispering in your ear. Thoughts can be dropping into your mind. You may not attribute it to your guides. It might just seem to you that, oh, I just had this idea, or I just had this new notion, this new understanding of something. And really all the time, it is your guides working with you to help you, to assist you, to help you comprehend that next aha, to help you to move forward and take that next step on your journey. The other reason that I really like that analogy is because it goes along with something that my guides were recently saying to me. And I'll say it like this. Sometimes I like to watch, like I was just giving the example of Esther Hicks, channeling Abraham. And I said to my guides, you know, there's people out there, they're working with their guides, and their guides have a name, like Abraham or Seth or Joseph or, you know, Ashtar of the Galactic Federation, you name it, okay? And, you know, I said, you know, when I'm in trance and I'm doing a reading, I never say I always say we. I talk as we. I talk as a blended consciousness. But I'm aware that I can communicate with an enormous range of different guides and different beings. And so what my guide said to me is, we prefer to say you are channeling the infinite consciousness of self. We like this because it's a little paradoxical to say infinite self. If the self is infinite, then it is everything. It is the entire universe. It is all creation, all existence, and all that is. So think about the wind. The wind is indescript. That's not a word, is it? The wind is
ethereal.
Yeah, ethereal. It is. I think I was looking for something like nondescript, but that's still not the right word. But the wind is not distinct in a way. It's indistinct. It's a force of nature. It's not a personified anything. It's a force of nature. And so when we as humans reach into spirit, we are reaching into something which is like the wind. It's actually not personified, but it will personify itself in order for us to relate to it, because we are so used to relating to the personification of things. Because we're all walking around in our physical bodies. My name is Leslie. My name is Corey. My name is so-and-so. But in spirit, it's like the wind, or it's like a vast ocean. So think, another great analogy is think about the ocean. The ocean is full of water. And then they say, don't we, we are like a drop in the ocean. So you're like a drop. An individuated drop. And when that individuated drop drops into the ocean, everything that made up that individuated drop, it still exists, but it's blended into the vast ocean. It becomes the vast ocean. It melds with the ocean. And this is an analogy for when we, the little drops, are connecting with the vast ocean of spirit. It's a kind of a melding and a blending to that vast sea of infinite consciousness, to connect with that and connect with the infinite information of that, and to be able to bring forth bits and pieces of that that relate and are relevant to the lives that we are living. So your guides are like the wind, your guides are like the ocean. Yes, Corey.
I just had a really scary thought.
What's that?
Okay, when we're looking at spirit, really, it's basically looking at something that's undefined in essence. You can't, like you said, it's like the wind. It's there, but nothing really defines it, because it changes and it's all encompassing. And I'm thinking about the newer generations in our societies today that are going, I won't be defined by my pronoun. I won't be defined by my my sex. I won't be defined by a number as an age, right? And in essence, that's almost spiritual. That's almost a spiritual growth on it with humankind. We're moving out of our physical definitions of each other, becoming more like spirit in a way. Well, I don't know if we're becoming more like spirit, but it's more like spirit. That's why I just had that thought.
That's one way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that movement, part of that movement, is helping us to accept the great variety of things instead of to expect conformity.
Exactly. And to be open to a completely different concept or ideology of what life can be. So here on earth, but then again in spirit form, what that life can actually be. It's opening our little minds.
Sure. So listeners, you're tuning into Unlocking Your Truth, and tonight we were talking about spirit guides and the relationship between spirit guides, you and your intuition, and receiving guidance. And I was sharing something that my guides had said to me, which is this concept that we are channeling the infinite consciousness of self. We think of ourselves as finite because we are individuated consciousness projected into these physical bodies. But as spirit, we are infinite consciousness. And so when we connect with our guides, we are connecting into this vast sea of infinite consciousness. And we were just saying, it's like thinking of a drop dropping into the ocean, and the drop blends with the ocean and becomes the ocean, but the drop still exists within the ocean. And so we can be connecting with different aspects of that vast ocean. And it's almost like, well, a particular drop within that ocean, or a coalescence of drops within the ocean, a group consciousness level within the vast infinite ocean of consciousness. The other analogy we were saying is it's like the wind on your sails. So a different way of looking at guidance. We as humans, we like to have the idea of our spirit guides being personified, being individuated, so that we can relate to them, so that we can say, well, I'm talking to Michael. I'm talking to Metatron. And we give them a name, but these are vast forces of nature. Those angelic beings, as we call them, are vast forces of nature underpinning reality. We might call our guides a name like Abraham or Seth or Joseph, but they're not individuals. They are group consciousness from within the vast ocean of consciousness. So think of your guides. See if you can expand your concept, perhaps, of what a spirit guide is. And perhaps even think of them as something more fluid. You know, if you use the metaphor of the ocean, there are currents in the ocean, there are waves in the ocean, there is things that are fluxing and shifting and changing and coalescing and whirling together in different configurations. The same with the wind. The same with the wind. And both of those things, the currents in the ocean and the wind, can be conspiring to help a boat move forward. And you're the boat. You're the one that's traveling this physical reality journey. And so you're the one that volunteered to be here in this body. And you are supported by this ocean of consciousness to experience that physical life. So I want to encourage anyone who's listening live to start posting questions and comments in the chat room. Tonight we're talking about spirit guides, and you're free to ask questions about spirit guides. And maybe some of you might say, well, I want to know who my spirit guide is. And we can certainly look at the idea of who your spirit guide is, but bearing in mind that perhaps it's a bit more than we can consciously conceive of. I think it's time to go for a break. So we'll be back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey. We're talking about spirit guides and your intuition, and how your spirit guides are your higher guidance here to support you in your life, and they are always there, no matter how lonely you might feel. I was using a few metaphors to expand our concept of how we might think of guides. And I'll use a third metaphor. Constellations. Constellations. Think about the stars and the clusters of stars, the constellations of stars. And then think about constellations of consciousness, groupings of consciousness. And that might be another way to help you understand that your guides are not necessarily an individual like you are experiencing yourself as. Or perhaps they might be, but many of them are not. Many of them are more like a group consciousness level. Do we have any questions yet?
Yes, we do.
Oh, that's good.
My main question is, why didn't I remember to start recording?
Oh, no.
Yeah, but that's okay. I can get it from YouTube or Facebook, as we've done before in the past. Okay, this is from Tracy. And Tracy says, should you consult your guides for anything and everything?
Well, I would never say you should anything. I never would say you should anything. So how do we answer that question? Should you consult your guides about anything and everything? Well, that, in a way, well, that's a bit much, isn't it? Shall I have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? What should I have for breakfast? A piece of toast or an omelette? I think there's some things that you can really decide on your own, and you don't need too much assistance with. So, but you can definitely be in a kind of stream or state of consciousness where your consciousness is blended with your guide, so that you are receiving the guidance that you need when you need it.
But I think they're there. Basically, they're there for help purposes. So, when you say, well, you don't want to ask them if you should have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Well, when you think about it, depending on why you're asking them whether you should have the coffee or the tea, like my health, I've been feeling, well, do you think the tea or maybe it's the coffee that's doing it to me type thing?
Yeah.
And that might help.
Sure.
That's a consideration to look at as well.
That's a slightly different reason for asking the question, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, basically, Tracy says, when is it a good idea? In other words, when is it a good idea to consult your guides?
I don't know why these questions are sort of, I'm going, when is it a good idea to consult your guides?
That's just an expansion on Tracy's question.
When you would like some information, when you would like some information, when you would like some assistance, when you would like some help, when you are feeling alone, when you are needing a healing, when you are going through a challenge, they are available to assist you with all of life's ups and downs. And so you can consult your guides as much as you'd like, really. There's no rules about it. I mean, you can even ask them if you should have an omelette. It's yeah.
I don't think there's no rhyme or reason to it. And the other thing too, Dr. Leslie, I think what you can do is actually ask your guide more or less where they would specialize in, what they would do, where they go, and vice versa. If you're looking for a specific type of guide, you can ask for that guide to come forward, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So in answering Tracy's question, I was assuming, she's familiar with her guide, but you're correct in that there are the idea of many different kinds of guides. So just as you might have a passion for something in particular, then there are consciousness in the realm of guides who may also have a passion for certain things. So for example, I have several healing guides, and each healing guide specializes in something slightly different. So I have a couple of guides if I'm ever doing DNA work. They specifically help me with the DNA work. I have another guide who helps me with a kind of light technology healing. And I have another guide that's sort of like an ascension guide. I have a guide who's a manifestation guide. So depending on what it is that you're requesting help with, there may be a different flavor or of being that comes to assist you.
Thank you.
And you know, and again, this is us in our human minds. We like everything to be in a neatly packaged parcel, and we like to label the parcels. So one little box that we have says angels. Another little box that we have says ascended masters. Another box says nature spirits. Another box says galactics and galactic consciousness. And there's some little boxes inside each of them. In the galactics, it says Pleiadians, Arcturians, Syrians, Andromedans. In the nature spirit box, it says elves, pixies, brownies, fairies. In the ascended master box, it says Lao Tzu, Kuan Yin, Jesus, Mary. In the angel one, it says Metatron, Michael, Gabriel, Raziel, and so on. And yes, we can connect with that particular frequency of energy. But we like to make them seem so separate in their neat little boxes. And I guess the idea I'm trying to introduce in this podcast is that maybe they're not exactly as neatly boundaried as we like to think of them. That helps us to think of them that way. But really, they are aspects of a vast sea of consciousness. And we connect with them, we're connecting into that vast sea of consciousness. So you might go through the channel of Archangel Michael, but Archangel Michael is connected to everything. You might go through the channel of Lao Tzu, but Lao Tzu is connected to everything, the vast sea of the ocean. You are existing as a drop. Lao Tzu is existing as a drop in the ocean. You might go through the channel of Ashtar of the Galactic Federation, and you know, through that be connected to the vast infinite sea of consciousness. And your experience may be, well, I am talking to Archangel Michael, I am talking to Lao Tzu, and you are, but you're also having access to the infinite through that one that you are, through that ocean drop that is part of the ocean that you are connecting to. Is it making sense?
I think so. I understand what you're trying to say.
Good.
It's like it's sort of like your spirit guide that works with you on DNA readings. It doesn't mean that spirit guide at any given time in his or her existence or its existence, was it a scientist in DNA? It doesn't. It has the ability to tap into all the information about DNA without having at any given point known anything about DNA. Am I correct?
Well, I'm not sure I follow you. The guides that I work with on DNA are actually Pleiadian guides, and they are part of a group that seeded human DNA. And they are helping people to activate silent DNA so that they can access their latent qualities and latent abilities. But it is possible that you could have a guide who used to be a DNA scientist who then passed away and is, as a next step in their conscious evolvement, behaving as a guide. So yeah, your example is
but doesn't have to be, because a spirit guide can tap into any bit of information you want at any given time.
Yeah, and some of them have a passion, an interest. And, you know, it's funny, I connected with a few of my students this week, 2 or 3 of them, and they all had brand new healing guides. And so as you grow and expand, you actually could outgrow your guide, and so some guides stay with us for a lifetime, but other guides cycle in and out. If what you're working out on and the stage that you are at is what they are interested in, is what they are passionate about, but you can outgrow each other. You can complete that cycle of working together. And then you may connect with somebody else. The other thing that I would say about guides is that oftentimes they are aspects of our higher consciousness. They are aspects of our higher being. And separate from us, experience ourselves as separate beings. Your being is eternal. And so, in actual fact, many of your guides may simply be other aspects of you, emanating from within the same oversoul level.
Okay. So let's look at the next question, Dr. Leslie.
Sure.
So this is from SP, and SP says, hello, regarding spirit guides, if we are having difficulty with another person, along with grounding, centering, etc., is it okay to speak to that person's spirit guides, guardian angels, etc.? To clarify, I recently had some difficulty with somebody who was doing something that wasn't healthy and could prove problematic. I spoke to their higher self to help, but not to their spirit guide.
Well, great question. And, you know, it's funny, before Corey read that out, I would have said, well, no, I'd just go directly to their higher self. You know, their spirit guides are there already helping them. And so talk to their higher being. But yeah, you could communicate with their guides. That's an option. You could ask for guidance from their guides about, you know, is there anything that you can do that they would suggest? Because they have a different perspective than you. They can perhaps see more, a different approach than you're able to see from your perspective. So yeah, there's no reason why not to communicate with someone else's guides. I kind of do it all the time when people come for readings with me. Oftentimes their guides will show up and I'll be conveying information to them from their guides. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Leslie.
You're welcome.
This is from Lorraine. And I think I know what she means, but I'm not 100% sure. She says, how can you communicate with the ocean?
How can you communicate with the ocean? Yes. Well, I kind of was explaining it, so I'll try again the same way, and maybe that. So how can you communicate with the ocean? Well, one way is you are actually part of that ocean. Even though you conceive of yourself to be a separate drop, you actually are part of it. So everything that you do and think is actually already being communicated to the ocean. But how can you communicate to the ocean in that you are asking for guidance and information? I just ask for guidance and information and let the ocean worry about how it contacts you. So, or you can have a particular personification of the ocean that you like Archangel Michael, or like Lao Tzu, or like your own specific healing guide. All of that is communicating with the ocean of consciousness.
Now it's time for a quick break, Dr. Leslie.
Great. Well, we will return after these messages. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. We're talking tonight about intuition and spirit guides. And it's a subject we've talked about many times before. If you go to drlesliephillips.com and you Google spirit guides, you'll get a number of episodes. And we're framing it in a different way in each episode. We're giving you a different flavor, a different way of looking at it in each episode. And that's actually what we're doing tonight. So if you're tuning in tonight and you're saying, well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? The wind, the ocean, the star, the constellations, what the heck? Go to drlesliephillips.com and Google spirit guides, and you'll get a number of episodes where we talk about it in different ways. But this is our angle and our perspective today.
Whether you like it or not.
That's right.
Okay, next question. It's from Carol. Carol says, yes, it's your Carol that's in your courses with you. As there are so many types of spirit guides, it can often get into my head of who does what. Would it be a good idea to ask for a master guide, like a manager, to organize the guide to come forward to help?
Yeah, you can do that for sure. That's wonderful, very creative. Absolutely, you can.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, there are people who have master guides. Absolutely. Sure.
So it's sort of like a receptionist.
Sort of like a receptionist or a librarian. There are often people who work with the idea of accessing the Akashic records. And after I've said this, I'll give you my perspective on the Akashic records, but they will work with a librarian guide, and they will ask the librarian guide to access the files from the Akashic record. Or they will work with a librarian guide for their own memory banks when they're working psychically, within themselves. And that librarian will bring up the memories from the memory banks that they're asking for. Now, my definition of the Akashic records is it's everything. It is this vast ocean of consciousness that I'm talking about in a way. The Akashic record is a record of everything that ever has, is, or will be. And that includes everything you've ever done, you've ever said, you've ever experienced, or will do in the future, and everyone else, and all possibilities and probabilities that exist in different timelines. It's basically a record of everything. So it's anyone who's doing any kind of psychic reading is reading the Akashic records, whether they call it that or not. Because it's back down to us humans again. We like to label things and make it special. It's the Akashic records.
Has to have a name.
Yes. You have an Akashic record. The planet has an Akashic record. The Milky Way has an Akashic record. The infinite ocean of existence does.
Very interesting. Okay, so I have a question from Misty. Misty says, do you think we manifest our guides, or do you think they come to us at a certain phase in life?
I don't see any difference between those two choices. I think yes, you manifest your guides, and yes, they may come to you at a particular phase in life, or they may be with you for your whole life. So yeah, absolutely. Everything in your reality is your manifestation. Everything in your reality is your creation, including your guides. And you are a projection of consciousness, and your guides are a projection of consciousness. And ultimately, at some point, they're coming from the same source. And that might mean they're coming from the same oversoul, or it might mean they're coming from, some ultimate great being the oversoul of the oversoul of the oversoul. But yeah, ultimately.
So
So
Carol
yeah.
says in the second part of the question, she says, can you see if I have a master guide? I've been calling on them, but not sure if I'm getting them.
Well, the short answer to that is yes. And again, guides are spirit, they're non-physical, but often they will project an image for us to be able to interface with, and they may have a particular frequency. So I am seeing a guide, and it's more of a male valence guide. They're neither male or female, but they can appear to be more in what. So it's a male valence guide, and it's got a big mustache, and it looks like you know, like one of those ancient Chinese with a big long mustache, and he's riding a, oh gosh, what do you call it? It's not a bicycle. You know, what's those little taxis that they have in China that they drive around everywhere and people take a ride on? Can't think of the name of it. Not a charabang. Anyway, he's got a little thing that he's pedaling. And he's got a lot of amusement, actually. And I guess it's so that the idea that he can run around and get whatever you want. And also it feels like this thing that he's riding around with also feels like one of those, you know, those ice cream, you know, those guys that have sell the ice creams in the park, and it's on their bicycle.
Rickshaw.
So sort of like rickshaw, yeah, but also like an ice cream thing. So he's got this idea that he can run around on errands and run around and get things. But yeah, he's got a curly mustache, and he also reminds me a little bit of Salvador Dali. He's a little bit surreal, and he's a little bit humorous. So yeah, you've got one, Carol.
Thank you. So Lorraine says, thank you. You've made it understandable for me.
That's
Back
good.
question or two. So this is from SP, and I've added a couple together here from her. I think I'm understanding what you were saying, but I do find it easy to differentiate spirit guides, etc. I'm new to paying attention to them, so I'm not familiar with how they work. How can we tell the difference between our higher self and spirit guides? LOL, you answered my question as I was typing it, differentiating higher selves and spirit guides.
Yeah, and one answer to that question is, does it really matter? Why do we need to know the difference? If it's a trusted guide and it's our trusted higher being, and it may be that the guide is a portion of our higher being, is an aspect of ourselves. But how can you tell the difference? Through frequency. So in my psychic development courses, we're very much working with frequency and tuning into different frequencies. And so your higher being is your specific energy signature. A guide may have a different energy signature than you, and you learn to recognize the different energy signatures. And also, if you're using your psychic abilities, then it may be that, just as I gave a little reading of what Carol's master guide looked like to me, you get to see them. You get to see them, you get to hear them, you get to recognize their personification and their unique energy frequency, and distinguish it from your own unique energy vibration.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will have that bit of a challenge differentiating their higher self from a spirit guide. I mean, it's your inner voice. I mean, we have enough problems trying to differentiate our inner voice from our higher self as well, you know, like our own inner voice or
Your inner voice is your higher being. It is the
yeah,
voice.
but I'm talking about the ego side of your brain, you know, like our thoughts and things.
And so again, that's in Unlock Your Intuition, which will be starting again in January, one of the things we focus on is how do I tell the difference between my ego? How do I tell the difference between my higher being and my intuition? So we start in psychic development, we are basically tuning in, we are basically perceiving energy bandwidth, energy frequencies, configurations of energy, and we learn to distinguish one unique energy signature from another, like being able to tell the difference between chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream and strawberry ice cream. It's a different flavor, it's a different energy signature. And so to the layperson, yes, it's very confusing. How do I know it's not what's my mind, what's my emotions, what my intuition, what's my ego? But if you dedicate time and attention to this, and if you learn from somebody who has a lot of experience with this and can guide you through the process of accessing your psychic abilities, then it can become more discernible for you.
Yes, SP says, yes, it's so true, Corey. Ari wondering what's the ego or your higher self? You have an answer to that too, SP. Don't forget, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please give us a like, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube.
And invite your friends.
Bring sandwiches.
Yeah, have a party.
Yeah. This is from SP again, and SP says, I started giving my guides and angels names for my favorite movie or TV characters. Although I do think some of them are parts of my higher self, it was fun to do.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps, doesn't it? Let's face it, we're humans. I give my guides names. We're human. That's how we operate. That's fine.
Yeah. I actually go one step further. I actually have stars and characters from TV as my guides and helpers. Big Bird, Robin Hood. So it's a lot of fun. Next question for Dr. Leslie. It's from Brian. Brian says, have I picked up a new guide? The communication style has changed, and though I use one guide for access, as it's easier for me to keep track of, I'd hate to be overlooking one that may be helpful with everything going on.
The short answer to that is yes. And the slightly longer answer to that is that there's a group consciousness. We can call it a guide, but it's a group consciousness. And it feels like this is a level of guidance that you have become more able to perceive as your vibrational frequency has shifted and as your vibrational frequency has gone up. It looks like they've been reaching out to you for a while, and it's just been slightly outside of your conscious awareness, slightly outside of your bandwidth. And now your bandwidth is compatible enough that it's within reach to connect with this collective of spirit guides, this collective consciousness. And it looks like they're for a few different reasons. One of them is helping you to, we could say manifest, we could say create abundance, we could say learn more about reality creation. And it is really learn more about reality, give you more confidence that you can create what you need when you need it. Let go of some of the old concepts of needing to accumulate. And also free yourself even more from the confines of what our culture has said we need to do, like be on the hamster wheel. So it looks like there's almost like a call to adventure, a call to adventure, new ways of experiencing things, new ways of looking at things, new ways of operating in the world. So that looks exciting.
Thank you. This is from Anderini. Anderini says, can you describe my master guide if I have one, if I have any?
Okay, Anderini. Well, there's a few different guides. There's one guide that you have that's from your cultural background. Looks very Indonesian, and even feels like associated with the island where you come from. And it looks like that guide is more prevalent when you're visiting there. So I won't call him a master guide, but I would kind of call him a master guide or an expert guide in terms of belonging to that area in the world and the energy of that landmass and the energy and cultural background of the people. In addition to that guide, there are others, quite a few others, and I don't know that, I think each one has its role. There's one that's coming forward to be introduced. And this guy, it has a kind of a crystalline, like a pale pink crystalline energy. And I almost want to say it's a career guide, which is a funny thing for a guide in a way to say, but it's a guide that is helping you to realize your potential, but also expand your idea of what realizing your potential means. And help you get beyond some of your limits.
Thank you. And the next question is, plus Rosalind wants to know what course you think she should take, but Rosalind, just info at Dr. Leslie, and you can actually set up a time to have a chat with her.
Yeah.
And I have one more question from Tina. Tina says, how would I know if a DNA healing would be helpful for me? What sort of things does this help with?
Well, many different things. And every time I do a DNA healing, it's actually different depending on the person. It can be really good for clearing ancestral patterns. So if there are issues that are handed down through the lineage of your family, then a DNA healing with that lens and that focus can really, really help with that, because we can work on clearing that influence from the DNA. It can also be useful in a kind of health reading sense, to look at and clear different predispositions and ways that things are being expressed that might not be beneficial. And also in like scanning the DNA to look for areas of missense or mutation and energetically correcting them. You can even work on the length of the telomeres and things like that to help with aging, and so on. And then finally, as I was alluding to before, two of the guides that I work with, sometimes they bring me specific people, and the purpose is to help activate silent DNA that is packaged up and not being expressed. And it's just part of the ascension process or evolutionary process. All right, well, thank you for tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth. I am being told that it's time to wrap up.
Yes, it is time to wrap up, Dr. Leslie.
Yes, yeah.
So goodbye to all. See you next week.